We got a whole lot to catch up on.
The end of the war, there were hostages coming home.
Barry Weiss selling the free press. Ezra Klein's odyssey into his own party and what he's learned. There was a Unite the Right group chat we got to talk about. Dave Smith, Coleman Hughes, Dave Smith, Nick Fuentes, Brian Callen on Rogan, the Riyadh Comedy Festival, the Austin comedy scene. So stick with us.
Welcome back to
Ami's house.
Okay.
Welcome back, everybody.
Everybody, welcome back. Look, we have to tell all the fans, all the people, I know we kind of went off the grid, and I know it was probably a weird time for us to do that, given that our last episode that we released was with the director of the Mossad, Yossi Cohen, and then we disappeared. So I'm sorry if we caused a panic. But the real reason is we had a lot of holidays, a lot of travel, so the episodes went on pause for a little bit. Yeah. But luckily, it was a slow news cycle, Michael, and not much happened.
Last time we spoke, the phrase 20-point peace plan didn't exist.
Yeah. I was going to say, did anything happen while we were away? Anything that was relevant to our show? I don't know.
Oh, my God. Wild, right?
Yes, I mean...
Wild. I mean, if you would have told me when we got up from Yossi Cohen, by the next time you guys record, all the hostages will be back.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Mind-blowing.
Well, I wouldn't say I had a front row seat, but let's catch people up as to where I was and where everything... What was happening as this was all going down, because we weren't releasing episodes. It was a lot of holidays going on, and Michael and I are Orthodox Jews, so we're offline half the time anyway because of observance. But I happened to be in Israel for the last 3 weeks. I was documenting and posting to my own social media, but it was very interesting in a way to be there as this was all unfolding. I think from your angle and your perspective and people looking from the outside in, you kind of always think it's more insane and intense than it actually is when you're there on the ground, you know, when you're perceiving it from the outside, from the diaspora or whatever. What's it like over there? The truth is, it's more normal than abnormal. It's like you're just kind of there and there's a lot of holiday energy going on anyway. But I felt like the main big day was when Trump flew in. And I feel like even for us in Israel watching this, similar to the way everyone around the world was watching, because it was such an event, you know? He's such a gravitational force when he comes in. And it's just interesting to see that in Israel, even the people who will hate Bibi forever and the biggest left of center people, the biggest chilonim, the biggest secularists, love Trump. Like he is like unanimously loved in Israel. And
you know what I thought they might do? I thought a nice gesture would have been to rename the airport for him.
Oh.
From Ben Gurion to Trump International Airport. Would have been a little like impulsive, I think. But wouldn't that have been nice?
I would say a street or something by the embassy, Trump
It's
Way.
It's got to be bigger. He would have loved that too, no?
I think renamed Jerusalem. But when he came in, I mean, what were your reactions? Because it was crazy. That moment, that day, I think if it would have happened in February, I'll say this. I think if it would have happened in the middle of the year at a random time, it would have been a palpable difference. But because the holidays were all in flow and everything, there was so much energy around that, it sort of blended in with that. Having said that, when he came in and did an hour-and-a-half speech killing in the Knesset, you're just like, this guy can say it. It's just amazing that a U.S. president can get a standing ovation in Saudi Arabia and Israel in the same year.
Yeah.
You're built different. You can't. It's undeniable. We got him back, 20 people home. We got them all back. Wow, what a party. Let's party. It's unbelievable. And, you know, I don't know. But I can describe the feelings of that, but I'm just curious how it was on your end watching it.
Well, I mean, it really started, it started before the hostages got back. You know, you heard the news that like the deal was going through, and then it seemed like in Israel there was already a celebration, but around me in America, everyone was like hold on a second, like let's just see if this happens. I was not at all sure that it would happen, but it seemed like in Israel they were like partying like it was already a sure thing. Like there was like videos of like one of the hostages' friends like jumping up and singing like Yoter Tov, Yoter Tov, and I'm like dude, he's not home yet. Like why am I more nervous than you are? So that was already a weird thing. And then the hostages came back. It was Hoshana Rabbah. It was the last day of Chol Moed. they came back in like mid-morning, I guess, like the video started coming out.
It's the afternoon for me, but yeah.
Yeah, and it was like I like watched the videos and I like wept. It was like I mean, sometimes I don't react in the way that normal people react to big things, but
We've been through that.
I was
Yes.
if you saw the live Charlie Kirk episode, you might know what we're talking about. Everyone caught up to me in like 48 hours, but no, and like it was very emotional. And then I was expecting like we'll get to Shul Shmini Atzeret, like Hasidim dance on Shmini Atzeret, so I was going to Shul for that, and then on Simple Star I was like, this is going to be the biggest Simple Star ever. And there was like hardly a mention of it. Like it was mentioned, but it was not this like end of the war party that I would have, if you would have told me in Rosh Hashanah, hey, by Simchas Torah every hostage will be home, I would have been like, oh my God. And it just wasn't that.
Yeah. I think I know why that is.
It was kind of shocking. And I think I now understand it better. But the whole time I was kind of ready to party, but no one else seemed ready to party. And I think I kind of get it, but it's sort of like this difference between real life and imagined life. Like this is actually what happened when the hostages came back. And it surprised me.
So when I saw like families gathered around on phone calls with Steve Witkoff and things like that, that was an indication to me that this wasn't just a headline, that a deal was like coming. It felt like it was more than just speculative. It was actually happening, because anytime hostages have actually come home, those are the things you see. You see families getting reassurances. So I'm like, oh my God, this is really happening. The way it felt once the headline came out, I remember seeing it. They put on like a TV screen in the hotel lobby, and it says, breaking news, all living hostages are now back in Israel's hands with the IDF. I remember feeling not celebratory, but just like restorative, like it was a restoration to normalcy. Almost like when somebody finishes a cancer treatment, you don't go, yay! You go, oh, okay. That part is finally done. You can start to live and heal now. It doesn't quite feel like victory. It feels like restoration and a correction that should never have happened in the first place. And now these hostages have to come home to a world that they're about to discover. You know, it's almost like you've been away, and like, wait till you find out what it's been like here. And obviously they've been through a hell. And I'm like, wait till they find out. I just mean, can you imagine in the past 2 years when that we on our end know that there are their posters have been ripped down in New York City. Like there's a whole reality now that almost has to now be able to be faced and dealt with and corrected now that this is behind us. And that's what it felt like. I felt celebratory because finally they're home, but ready to finally get past that to this next battle frontier ahead.
In my mind, it kind of boiled down to the phrase, the hostages are back. Like, oh my God, but also, so what? In a sense, like it was almost like, and I became a little bit more aware.
You might want to clarify that. What do you mean by so what?
So what? So I'm going to clarify. I think because of how masterfully the hostage family organization promoted their needs and interests, which was a choice. You know, there's ways to do it. When someone is taken hostage, you can either not talk about it, so whoever took them don't know they have like this huge asset, or you can talk about it forever, you know, and really build it up. So they're forced to the negotiating table to talk about it. So, you know, that's the strategy that the hostage family forum took, and sort of like, you know, with the posters and the empty tables at shul and everything. And I think I sort of absorbed that in a way of like, oh, like once the hostages come back, everything will be fine. Like that's the whole point, you know? But I think that when they were back, it sort of reality settled on me of like, that was sort of a campaign. That was like a choice to have me feel that way. And I'm glad I did, and good for them and great for them. They got what they needed, and we all got what we needed. But also like, oh, like it's not over. Like,
well, loss,
it's, you know, it didn't end. It ended for you and your family, but it didn't end for all of us yet.
Yeah,
You know?
and well, it's almost like you're saying there's like a button on October 7th, but not on October 8th. Like we can wrap up the trauma of October 7th in a specific way, but October 8th remains. The other thing is, it's like the loss of orientation, the end of a certain orientation, where when there's this like emergency trauma or mission at hand, and then it's finally accomplished or over, and the hostages have come home, you do lose this orientation. So there's a disorienting feeling now. Now what? What is the focus? What to do? How do you reflect on what has happened? And the fact that the world isn't celebrating the hostages coming home and only certain people are, you're like, I can't believe this is even some sort of partisan issue. Like, that tells you something. I realize I say a lot. People say in the comments, so I have to pause when I say the word.
So do I. Well, a great illustration of that is the cover of this week's New York Times Magazine is not "The hostages are home." It's a profile of Mamdani.
But
I mean, literally.
Well, don't you think that's also because the news cycle moves so fast? I feel like last week it was all that stuff. No. Not yes and you, but I felt like that was the story for at least a few days, that it was all happening, the deal, Trump, hostages. I don't know about the magazine, but the paper was covering it. I feel like that more is a testament to how fast things move, and that people are already like over it. Now we're already into the war's not over. The ceasefire might be broken, whatever it may be. You know,
no, they came back last Tuesday, and the following Sunday's magazine could have been about that. It didn't have to, like, Mamdani will be here in 2 weeks. It didn't have to be about Mamdani's rise.
Right.
I mean, yes, it moves quickly, but like it's because we are not interested in it, and we've never been interested in it, and we never will be interested in it.
Yes,
like we rather cover the
fair. I didn't know if it was weekly what you're talking about.
New York.
Yeah.
New York Times Magazine is a weekly magazine. That it's awesome usually.
Right.
Anyway.
But in any event, there was that feeling like of when you're in Israel, you're like, all of a sudden Israel, the one thing that felt kind of uniquely different there is that you're walking around and you're like, I said like again, you walk around feeling somewhat safer for a second, that the idea that sirens or things like, is that now in the past? Is that now something that was experienced by people living here and when you visit here, and it's no longer? Like, you contemplate that as you're walking around the streets, like, did that all happen now and we're out of that chapter of history? And you wonder, and everyone's in our community is cautiously optimistic because we've seen these things just fall through in a matter of weeks, and it's almost to a T a week later. Hamas begins firing on Israeli troops and the ceasefire shatters or whatever. So there's that cautious optimism, but the fact that they don't have any hostages living in Gaza is a new reality.
I mean, to speak about it, I mean, all the amazing things about it. Like, I do feel lighter. I do feel like, as Yossi Klein-Levy said, like I can breathe again. For sure, I feel different than I did while they were in there. Wait, I had another thought. I can't remember it now.
Of just the status of things. I said that it feels safer in Israel in a way that it didn't before. Like the chapter has moved. That's what I was saying before. But
anyway, it'll come to me.
Yeah, the question that felt new and different that I hadn't felt in a long time. But then it felt like, you know, in terms of facing what's to come or reflecting, like you couldn't actually do that yet until
I
you
think
sort of
also.
reached past this.
Right. I mean, it's also like we haven't really processed the trauma communally yet because we've been holding ourselves tight, just trying to make it through. Now that they're back, we can sound we remember what happened on October 7th. It didn't go away, and now we can finally start kind of processing that, which is this very complex emotion, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing that was just kind of amazing to me was there was a time when, I don't know the exact numbers of percentages of how many hostages, there was about 250 initially, and some were killed on that day, and then some were killed in captivity, but a fair amount of hostages did come back, were retrieved, were rescued, were exchanged in a way that I just, when you think about the conditions they're in and the people they're with, never would have imagined seeing even a single one. Right. And so there's a moment where you're watching kind of Bibi, Trump, and like, you know, in that moment. And just like, Bibi has his moments where, obviously most of the time it's a lot of criticism and people out to get him. And then you're also looking at the arc of history a little bit and how he'll be looked at. And you're like, wait a minute. So in 2 years since this happened, which obviously requires its own investigation, I'm not, losing accountability for that. But Bibi Netanyahu oversees the war that destroys Hezbollah, degrades Hamas. Syria is not what it was. Iran gets its nuclear facilities destroyed, and a fair amount of hostages come back. And this isn't me just providing cover or anything like that. I'm just trying to objectively look at those stats. It's pretty insane.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Whenever I think about criticism, Bibi, I also think like how many human beings on Earth could sustain the amount of pressure he's been under for even 48 hours, let alone 2 years, and like navigate this. And I mean, it's insane what he goes through.
It's the kind of thing that it's like when you read about historical leaders or Golda Meir or these great leaders that at the time were in turmoil politically and hated and loathed. I don't know. How do you think history will look at Bibi? To me, it's, when you see moments like this.
This I don't know.
This I don't know. Somebody said to me, this is modern day Purim. You have Jared and Ivanka, the Mordechai and Esther, Achashverosh and Trump and all these things. And, the restoration of Jewish glory.
He lost the hostages but he also got them back. And I don't know how many human beings could do that.
One thing that was nice is in Trump's remark. One thing in Trump's remarks that was nice was when, for all the talk of MAGA having this anti-Israel element to it and everybody is turning in Trump's movement against Israel, he goes, I love Israel. You're so great. I just love it here. You're wonderful people. It's great. And he's just riffing and saying, Miriam Adelson, maybe Israel first, but who cares? He's just saying these lines. And then you're just like, oh yeah, all the people making all this noise and chatter that aren't Trump, you realize, okay, Trump is Trump. Trump has his positions. He knows where he stands. He's not being pressured or, directed in particular ways. He's like, I love Israel. I know the difference. I know what we're doing. It was like he was emceeing a shul dinner. It was unbelievable to watch an hour and a half of that. But then it reminds you where like the real power is and impact is. And it's sometimes not these noisemakers on Twitter. It's just like when Iran happened and you're like, oh yeah, this is the consequential real stuff versus like a podcast viral clip that's like changing waves. Like you remember a little bit in these moments where, reality exists and real consequential things happen.
Oh, here's what I was going to say before. I mean, yes to all that. That's a great point. I think one of the differences between this and the rest of the war is I fully shut out hearing what the other side is saying about it and have just sort of focused on like the joy and like relief and incredible experiences as like someone who supports Israel. Like I don't care what Crystal Ball thinks about this. I want to know now, and I'm going to ask you what you've been hearing, but I chose to experience this fully just as like a Jewish Zionist, happy about it, not trying to analyze it in any way. But what have you been what have you been seeing from the anti-Israel side?
I mean, I have what to say, and I think we have an episode planned where we'll get really into that and what's kind of been revealed to me about a lot of these talking heads. But let's just say I happen to know with a little more authority now that most of the stuff and the narratives that people are running with are completely fabricated, embellished, exaggerated, viewed through a cinematic lens. And maybe this is a transition that we could talk about where
wait, but what are you I'm just talking about the reaction to the ceasefire.
It's a lot of people
specifically.
You know what I've noticed? If I'm honestly, you're asking me what the anti-Israel crowd is saying? Nothing. Silence. Whether it's the biggest, woke anti-Israel, anti-Zionist crowds, the second there's a ceasefire on Israel's terms and the accused genocide is over, they have nothing to say. And now that Hamas is being shown to be brutal and executing people in the street that they deem as collaborators, and not just executing, throwing massive boulders on their knees, tying them up and beating them with bats, torture, nothing to say. What I've noticed more from that crowd, it's the same thing about when Iran happened, and they're like, this is going to drag America into war, and all the talking heads and the Tuckers and all these people are saying all these things, and Dave Smith's making these claims of what this is going to do. And then there's just a big chunk of silence until the news cycle moves on, and they just move past it as if they didn't make all these things, stake their claims, hedge their bets, and are proven wrong, and just quietly try to move past it. It's the same thing as the activists, the woke activists, the celebrities, the John Cusacks, everyone saying ceasefire now, but once it happens, nothing. Because it was a useful cause to make themselves feel virtuous and relevant, and now that it's not happening anymore, and it's on Israel's terms, it was like, oh, no, it wasn't ceasefire. I just wanted Israel to lose. Or whilst it was going on, I can say ceasefire now, but then when it actually happens, I have nothing to say or celebrate because I just simply parasitically used a cause for my own self-aggrandizement and virtue. So in the wake of it ending, silence. We got to move on to something else. Now, not every player in this game is exactly like that and overtly parasitic. I think people are more passionate about issues than others. I think Dave Smith, somebody tried to call out online, was like not celebrating this and trying to call him out for not, like, why aren't you celebrating, Dave? Why aren't you celebrating? And he's just more like, I'm suspicious as to if this will hold or something like that. That was sort of his statement on that. And he's always suspicious of Western powers orchestrating anything, because there's always these hidden agendas. So of course this isn't legitimate, it's not really going to last. There's other agendas at play.
No, I saw his tweet. He was like very concerned it wouldn't last. Like that was his like emotional response. I really don't think this will last.
But in any event, there's a whole lot of silence, which is very revealing about when this stuff actually happens and actually comes to a ceasefire, and there's nothing they say about it, nothing celebrating. I thought this is what you wanted, but it means to say that you really just was an excuse to hate Israel and use that cause to make yourself feel virtuous. So that's what I noticed. I think it's a cool transition if we want to talk about the Coleman Hughes, Dave Smith interview.
Yeah. And let's just before we do that, if you're listening, we got a whole lot to catch up on. So I'm just gonna like go through the list right now and just stick with us. We're gonna cover Barry Weiss selling the Free Press. Sort of Ezra Klein's odyssey into his own party and what he's learned, specifically through his conversation with Ta-Nehisi Coates. There was a Unite the Right group chat we got to talk about. Dave Smith, Coleman Hughes, Dave Smith, Nick Fuentes, Brian Callen on Rogan. The Riyadh Comedy Festival, the Austin comedy scene is kind of blowing up. So we have a lot to cover. So stick with us. This is gonna be a long one.
Yeah, we'll be right back after. We're right here, and we're still here. But this is the massive marathon catch-up Ami's House episode to get us back into the game after being away for this little break. And there's just been a ridiculous amount of worthwhile stuff to cover. That's significant.
What did you bring up? The Coleman Hughes, Dave Smith?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because I think in an unfortunate way, it sort of got washed in. It got like overlooked because I follow stuff on Twitter a lot, and clips have been going around. But it for such a quality conversation, I thought it was so well done. But it got kind of, washed into
lost in the mix
of this huge news cycle of the war ending and hostages and all of that. Yeah. But did you happen to watch any of it or little clips of it?
Yeah, I watched a bunch of it.
I just thought. It was sort of the corrective sequel of the Douglas Murray Rogan Smith episode, and I felt like Coleman, people have said to me, like, in this debate space and having these conversations, I always had this little bit of imposter syndrome because I fancy myself more of just an entertainer. I don't know anything. I'm an idiot. I'm just kind of saying my opinions as limited as they are. No, but I'm just saying, when you watch Coleman Hughes versus Dave Smith, to me, it's a demonstration of watching somebody who knows things versus someone who talks about things. Like Coleman Hughes at such a high level really does the hard work of getting to the like granular details and does his research and prepares for the conversation and the questions. And I think he took Dave to task that even Rogan, who was reviewing that and discussing it with Brian Callen, was like, I think it was the first time that Dave was stumped a bunch. It was interesting to see.
I didn't know that. What else did he say about it?
That was kind of
what
it.
Else did Rogan say?
He was talking about it with Brian Callen on the episode. And this isn't meant to be this sort of gotcha to Dave, because the real credit is like, they had a real civil 3.5 hour conversation. So I didn't really love the posture of people trying to clip the episode up to say Dave finally gets owned and rocked. I just and it's hard to do in an episode like this, and I think that's why it wasn't as ripe for virality and clipping, because Coleman's owns on Dave were like 12-minute unpacked segments of nuance. And but if I'm being honest in reviewing it, obviously we have a bias of already agreeing with Coleman, and we're already on that side, so to speak. But in a lot of cases, Coleman reveals that Dave's arguments are a few lines deep, and then after that, it's a lot of kind of just moving around it, and then like saying, I never actually said that. That's not what I'm saying, dude. Like Wesley Clark and the clean break strategy. He points out, Wesley Clark never actually even read the memo.
What is that? Because you mentioned that before, and I wasn't sure what that was.
So I'm just saying Dave has made his rounds on a lot of these podcasts and makes a good case and is very articulate and effective in his debating style and rhetorical style. But there's a playbook, and I know he genuinely believes these things, but he uses a lot of the same talking points over and over again that have gone unchallenged. So this was one of the first real times that Coleman did the service of, to take on Dave's arguments point by point and really tackle them. And then you find that once you get scrutiny and pushback on these points, they're not that persuasive or effective. From me watching, I'm like, oh, okay. So for example, Dave always, he talked about Israel dragging Iraq into the war. Israel dragged America, into the war with Iraq.
Okay.
That's a big point that Scott Horton, a lot of the libertarian isolationists like to make, that Israel is the one who's been dragging America into these foreign wars on Israel's behalf, these foreign entanglements, Iraq being a main one of them.
Right. So
pointing
although we're allies, Israel's not worth the effort because it keeps getting us dragged into these huge liabilities.
That cost millions and blood and treasure. Yeah. And look, all you have to do is, and he always points to Bibi Netanyahu testifying in front of Congress about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And if we take down Iraq, that regime will create a toppling effect of all these regimes that will spread democracy. Bibi was saying that. Now, Coleman points out, yes, but Dave, Bibi Netanyahu wasn't even the prime minister of Israel at the time. Ariel Sharon was, and he was against the war in Iraq. And he actually was for intervening with Iran at the time, that he was saying they were the real enemy. He said Iraq was not a good idea. So that was one point. The clean break strategy that Dave always points to is this memo that went around, I think, in the 90s about post-Oslo, that if Israel and America could focus on toppling various regimes, you could have a clean break from Oslo, and you could topple these regimes one by one in Yemen, in Syria, and this was all list by list, in Iraq, and America followed suit, and so many of those countries have been toppled since. And Wesley Clark testified, and he points to Wesley Clark saying that was the clean break memo strategy. And Coleman points out Wesley Clark, this general, never actually read the memo because he asked, is this classified? And they said yes. And he said, okay, I can't read it. And Coleman says, in a history book, that the contents of the clean break memo wouldn't even be admissible because the person you're talking to hadn't even read it. In other words, overall, I'm getting into the weeds of the debate. It's very much worth watching. But that was one area where at a certain point, Dave just goes, I don't know, man. It seems like you're just shilling for a foreign government. And, and he's like, no, I'm just pointing out. And he was just saying, okay, I didn't actually say he read them. Once you poke and prod a little bit, Dave will say, okay, maybe he won't say maybe I was wrong. He'll say, okay, I'm not actually saying that, Right. But he is actually saying that when he's not pressed on it. But in any event, I just thought it was Coleman did just a masterful job at taking to task actually Dave's arguments. And I think it reveals that the arguments don't go as deep and substantive as they present. And it's more shows that Dave and a lot of people who are persuaded by those arguments kind of view history through this cinematic conspiratorial lens that, oh no, secretly there was a janitor taking a dump at Camp David who saw and overheard everything, and that's the real story, and really it's a lot more, when you uncover things are a lot more boring and less convenient and coincidental than that. Rumsfeld was the one who dictated we're going to do this and sent the memo. Apparently Rumsfeld sent 40 memos a day during his tenure as defense secretary or whatever position he was in. Coleman demystifies all that and says, that Condoleezza Rice said most memos were ignored. And Dave was trying to point out that the one that they finally paid attention to is the conspiracy. It's most of the time he was sending memos daily, and he was notorious for doing that. There is no grand conspiracy. And as I dig deeper into some of this world, I'm like, most of the people who fall prey to this stuff, you come to realize, oh, it's just a boring guys in suits, and it's not some grand conspiracy of geniuses.
It's a good question How do you describe the way Dave and other people like him see history?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good question. You would say dramatically and
Yes.
conspiratorially.
Yes.
I would add into that also.
Cinematically.
I cinematically I would add into that also. There's I think Tim Dillon is like the master of this, of really leaning into this feeling that you're screwed and there's nothing you can ever do, and like and then just finding different ways to articulate that, and like that's Tim Dillon's whole comedy basically. It's very cynical,
Nihilistic. Yeah.
and nihilistic and fatalistic, and for whatever reason it really hits right now in this for
I
the last 5 years.
I agree. I think it hits this idea that, hey, things aren't working out for me so good right now, or the economy's not so good right now, or my situation's not so good right now. There must be something else going on out of my control, calling the shots. And I'm seeing this disparity. I'm seeing powerful people from a distance. And it's just like when you meet your heroes in real life or celebrities, they're never as what you perceive them to be. They perceive this world and attribute a lot more power to it than's actually there, or a lot more influence. You know,
there's that part of it, but there's also the part of what's compelling emotionally is what they're really saying is there's no point in, you don't have to try because there's no point in trying. And I think people really love hearing that. A friend of mine,
it takes the edge off. You don't have to do anything.
A listener of the show from the very, very beginning. I think he's listened to every single episode. Vinny,
beautiful.
I was hanging out with him, and he was explaining to me like how he works with people who like are facing these struggles, and he helps them work through them. And the biggest hurdle is him telling them like, no, if you come up with a plan and you work hard over a long period of time, you can actually overcome this thing. And as he was saying that, I was like, dude, I haven't heard anyone say that in years. Like that attitude of like you can actually overcome something is so the other end of the spectrum of what I'm hearing through Breaking Points and Mamdani and Tim Dillon and like all it's this wave of nihilism, of fatalism that has really overtaken this generation.
That's what Jordan Peterson's message was at the time. You can change your life. Clean up your room and stop trying to. It was targeted at the woke left doing it, but now I'm seeing it in the conspiratorial woke right elements where they're like, there are these powerful people, okay, and you can frame anything and present anything as conspiratorial when really. It's a secret gathering. Oh no, they actually had coffee in the cafe and discussed something. It all depends on presentation, you know.
So let me bring this into the Ezra Klein Ta-Nehisi Coates interview because I think it links nicely. Where Ezra Klein, I think, since Charlie Kirk died, has been doing something really, really interesting. I think he was really moved by it. And I think the first episode he put out was kind of a defense of Charlie Kirk. He put out this famous piece now that said like Charlie Kirk did politics the right way. And he spoke to Ben Shapiro and he's been speaking to people on the right and, sort of saying, I'm not just going to say we need to talk to each other again. I'm going to actually talk to each other again.
So he's doing politics the right way. See, the thing with Charlie Kirk is that he practiced politics the right way. And then eventually he's something like this. Is that it, Michael? I'm sort of trying to get it, but
it's a little more self-serious and slow.
Yeah. But the thing is, Michael, I can't quite do it.
Right lisp. It's the right degree of lisp for sure.
But then the Ta-Nehisi goes, I can't get down with that. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I can't support that. That's not where I come from. That's not my history. That's not my ancestry.
That's good. So Ta-Nehisi Coates, I think famously or now or whatever called out Ezra Klein either publicly or privately saying like, I can't defend Charlie Kirk. He was kind of had what was coming, got what was coming. That type of sentiment. And so he had him on the show to basically ask Ta-Nehisi Coates like, listen, what do you want to do? Because we both agree that we need to win a race in order to affect change that we want to see, right? And it immediately broke down because he realized Ta-Nehisi Coates is not actually thinking about how to win a race and change things. He's just talking about what's wrong.
Grievance culture.
And he's this thought leader for everybody. And you could see like Ezra Klein's face drop throughout the talk to be like, oh my God, like I actually think I'm closer to like Ben Shapiro in some ways than I am to people within my own party. But so after watching that, I mean, my thought really was like, if you would have asked me 5 years, like I thought everything Jordan Peterson said was kind of like bullshit, basically. Like his whole thing that like the Marxists are taking over and this like, you know, these the woke mind virus. I thought it was all bullshit. I thought it was like all a way to sell like books to stupid people. And that's really what I would have said. But
Red
as I was watching Ta-Nehisi Coates, I was thinking, how else do you describe a wave of thinking throughout an entire generation that says, let's not build up this country in a way we want to see it. Let's tear it down.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that come from? And the reason I linked it to before is because Tim Dillon's basically saying the same thing. Like, what's the point of trying to build anything or win a race? Let's just talk about how shitty things are, which is what Ta-Nehisi Coates is doing. And Ezra Klein was just like you could see him getting more and more depressed throughout the talk. Like,
it was revealing it's revealing as to what the motivations were. For someone like Tim, I think he's also just trying to find the fun in as things come crashing down. I'm going to sit and laugh about it. He's dark like that, but he's also a comedian.
But the reason I bring it up is because his voice has somehow hit in this media landscape in the same way Ta-Nehisi's voice has hit.
Right, but what I will say is,
why are these voices hitting?
It reveals certainly and very clearly the motivations of these sort of hustlers who simply are destructive. They're not interested in correctives. They're not interested. It's a grievance culture, and it's this idea. You know, I think Ta-Nehisi Coates believes like America, in its DNA, is racist, is patriarchal, is all these things, is certainly racist, and you can't change it. It's unchangeable. It's irredeemable, and his notoriety, his career, his fame, the reason people respond to him is based on that. So why would he want to change it? Like, why would he want to fix the thing that makes people listen to him? You know, if it was fixed, he would become obsolete in a way. And you see that constantly, especially on the far left, especially around race issues where people use, you know, these ideas and want to keep people down so that they can point to the disparities and injustices in a society. If those people rise up if minorities rise up out of poverty, then they're no longer the victims and the story collapses. And it disproves your whole thesis that America is doomed to be racist forever. And the reason people are kept down is because of systemic racism and history and injustice. So we can't fix it because it will disprove my narrative. And I think that's what's being revealed also to Ezra Klein. It's not about trying to see common ground with the other people. It's trying to prove a narrative and double down on it. And so if America fixes that, that makes America better and good and virtuous. And that can't be right in Ta-Nehisi Coates' world, you know? So they're not going to give that up. Even Norman Finkelstein had a very telling clip I saw once. He was like, you know, to tell you the truth, I don't know what I would do. If there was peace in the palace, if there was two states and they worked it out, what would I do? What would I do? I've dedicated my life to this cause and I would feel lost without it, you know? So Thomas Sowell used to say that about Jesse Jackson, about Sharpton, all these kind of like the race hustlers who are using the, marginalized communities as pawns for a cause. They don't care. And they'll pass policies on behalf of them for their benefit, but they don't actually improve their lives. They just give these politicians and bureaucrats and activists something to fight for.
Do you think it's conscious or subconscious?
Do I think it's conscious or subconscious?
I don't think Ta-Nehisi Coates is consciously doing
I don't think deep down he's like, I know
but
America's
it's hard to disagree with.
I don't think he sits down and says to himself, I actually think America's great. I'm just going to keep playing this game and keep like in that sense. It's not this conscious. He knows better, but he like dogmatically believes this, and so he is certainly averse to fixing it. Why would you want to incentive wise? I think it's more of an incentives thing. Why would you be open to disproving your narrative that you built a career on?
You can certainly see it in the Ceasfire-Now crowd also. Now that there's actually movement forward, it's like we don't know how to like connect to this thing anymore. All we know how to do is connect to like constant constant struggle and tension. Like we don't know how to connect and move forward movement.
But it's an interesting question about your like conscious and subconscious, because if your premise is that America's irredeemable, is that America has this history of chattel slavery and therefore, and it can never fix that, then there is no way out. There is no progress. There is no dialogue.
Right.
You know, there's no working with any of these people. It's very clear to you, and therefore, I don't know if he's like thinking in terms of solutions. He's thinking in terms of grievance.
I don't think he is at all. And I think Ezra Klein, I predict here that Ezra Klein at some point in the next 10 years, like,
gets a Southern accent.
It's more aligned with the Daily Wire than like the New York Times. I think in what will be shocking. Right. I think he's going to come to the conclusion that there's no one for him to work with on his side of politics.
And to answer and I think it's not a subconscious. I like that question. Conscious thing. It's an incentives thing. Thomas Sowell wrote about
like that question.
No, because you have to wonder if it's so evident to us and clear what's going on here. How could you like look at yourself in the mirror?
I think it's the same way anyone who goes to work isn't making a choice every day to make the world a worse place.
Right.
They're just going to work. I think Ta-Nehisi, he's good at what he's good at. People offer him money to do it, and he just does it. I don't think he's.
Thomas Sowell, who I love, would write about this like time in his life. What made him a conservative economist? He used to be a Marxist. He started off as a Marxist in his like 20s, and what changed for him? And he said, "I took a job with the government. And one of my first jobs in the summer, I was working in the minimum wage department. They were administering the minimum wage policy. And I thought I had discovered something amazing, and I brought it to their attention. In my research, I discovered, hey, the minimum wage actually leads to more unemployment, that the more we increase the minimum wage, people hire less workers. So we have to get rid of this. This is a bad policy." And it turned out that the administration that administered the minimum wage policies, that minimum wage law was responsible for the whole budget that they got from the government allotted to them to implement this policy. So they were like, "Shh, bro, what are you doing? Shh, pipe down. We don't want to hear that." And so political incentives, economic incentives, they're kind of different. Narrative incentives, ideological incentives all play a role here. And if it's rewarded Ta-Nehisi Coates with this audience, with this brand, with this whatever, like you said, it's kind of going to work at a certain point. And I think that was revealed. And maybe there's darker elements too. I think he does have this like resentment to the United States. He doesn't feel fondly about it or its history or its virtue. So why is it something you want to? Why would you want to repair it or work with it? I don't know. It gives you a certain ideological like sense of virtue that you're, calling it out. I don't know.
Yeah. And I say that Ezra Klein became depressed. It was probably me who became depressed as I watched it. Just like, Ta-Nehisi Coates is such a stronger voice than Ezra Klein is. I think he has a lot more cultural sway than Ezra Klein does. And that's depressing.
Right. Well, transitioning on to the next thing. Now we've covered this is sort of, I'd say, on the left of center dialogue that's been going on, what you're talking about. Ezra Klein, Ta-Nehisi Coates is a good example of a recent example of that. What's been going on recently now, right of center, is the continued infighting, the latest story that's been going on. And I think this is interesting because it says a lot about the current blind spots I'm seeing on the right of center in the culture. There was a political story that exposed these sort of group chats from a young Republicans group that were full of just racism and anti-Semitism and terrible comments and things like that. Edgelording, they call it. Where people, say what they say the most edgy thing they can think of and transgress in the most edgy sort of provocative way. My first reaction is always, bro, stop screenshotting group chats.
Wait.
If you released group chats that I'm in, I'm going to hell, and so are you, and so is everybody. Don't release screenshots of group chats. But there's been this argument over how the right and the conservatives should respond to this.
Can you backtrack a little bit? I'm a little bit lost. What sort of group was this, and what sort of things were being said in it?
I have to look into it a little more, but there's like a young Republicans group, and it's like basically like that young MAGA Republican demographic, 20s young Republicans. There was this group chat that was exposed by Politico. They did a story that, leaked these, threads of group chats that had the most horrible stuff in it. Gas chambers, throw them in. I love Hitler. Ha 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 ha. LOL, whatever. Edgelording is the term. What can you say that's just the most, whatever, provocative thing? And the question is,
how do you know it was edgelording and it wasn't like more serious? That's your take on it.
I mean, if you read it, you can tell that they're joking around and stuff like that.
Over the top. It wasn't part of a conversation.
It wasn't like, hey, so speaking of the policy of bringing back the gas chambers, John, get back to me on that. It wasn't like that. It was like, it had that quality of edgelording. If you read through them, you're just like, great. I love Hitler. Let's bring him back. Now I'd say
it was fun.
I'd say the issue, first of all, for me is, the conversation now is in this like infighting in the right. What I would say first off is, it's not the group chat and the provocative words that these kids are using, and offensive, horrible language and words that they're using. That's really the issue. The issue is that there is this context, this apparatus of actual hateful commentators and podcasters and people who are pushing real anti-Semitism that mean it, that aren't edgelording and joking around. That's sort of the world we have to admit and acknowledge we live in today. If this happened in 2012, 2013, before October 7th, before it was revealed what's been going on, and before all these people were peddling, the worst anti-Semites out there are gaining mainstream attention, it just wouldn't matter that much. It would be like, oh, okay, that was stupid. Oh, God, they got in trouble. That member in the age of wokeness, like the littlest offense got crazy press, the littlest things that were leaked. So I would lump that in there, and I'm not overreacting to a bunch of group chats where people said a bunch of horrible shit. It's like, it happens. That's what the younger kids do, and screenshots, we're all going to hell. But it points to the concern over what's really out there. That's what I'm concerned about. If people made a bunch of racist jokes today, that's one thing. If they did it in Jim Crow South, the Jim Crow South is the problem that needs to be addressed. Just like the current state of, I would say, mainstreaming of anti-Semitism of people like Nick Fuentes and the Bolzarians and Jake Shields, these people who are like looking edgy and cool, but they're actually pushing horrible things. So that's one point. And then there's this debate going on between like Matt Walsh and other members of the Daily Wire and in the conservative media space of people who are drawing clear lines of who they're willing to unite with and not unite with. There are calls to say, after Charlie Kirk's death, Matt Walsh was like, I want to unite with the right. I'm not going to criticize anyone to the right of me to combat the left and the radicals on the left because they're more dangerous. And there's this argument, and there's these people, like I'm one of the people who are saying, no, like if you unite with people that don't share your ideas and your principles, you're going to destroy conservatism. What are you trying to conserve if you're uniting with people who, don't share those ideas? And the people who are actually causing the division and aren't uniting are the Tucker Carlsons and the Candace Owens and the people who are demoralizing Western civilization. If you're trying to fight to save Western civilization, you can't unite with people who continuously divide it. So that's my big rant issue on this whole thing. It's that not the provocative comments. Everyone's saying, making demands to say that, conservatives should condemn this. It's the easiest thing to condemn. Sure. Whether they should or not, yes, it's easy to say this is gross language, whatever. But the bigger issue is that there's this apparatus, there's this real anti-Semitism that's being mainstreamed. And I'm not going to unite with that. And if you do, you're doomed. That's what's going to make the worst elements of the left win. Rather than the argument to say we should unite with the worst elements on the right to defeat the left. I think that's a surefire way to ensure that the left wins when you compromise on your principles. Does that make sense? Did I say a whole lot of stuff?
Where I lose you is, why does that ensure that the left would win if the right would unite with the far right? What is Nick Fuentes going to make somebody vote for AOC?
Certainly. First of all, for a couple of reasons. Remember when James Lindsay told us it's like these people are actually trying to destroy MAGA. They're not pro-Trump. They're not pro-Western civilization. The guys we have to get precise and specific, but say like when the woke left, the AOC types call every conservative Nazis, they have no credibility for years and years and years as they do that, and eventually it backfires on them. But if you give that claim credibility, then you lose. And you'll certainly lose mainstream middle who are like, I'm not down with that. These people are like legit racists. Like, that's not the world I want to live in. And so if you give credibility to...
It's hard for me to imagine someone who's like still in the middle trying to like figure it out, I guess.
It's not even the middle, but it's just like you will pave the way for those claims and caricatures of the right, like Karis Rea was with us telling us. You're paving the way for that to be true. When you put that into your tent, for years and years and years, they called every conservative, every Republican racist and homophobic and all these things. And I think the left imploded because they overplayed that hand and cried wolf, and it wasn't true. So why make it true? That's my argument. And also, like, the people who aren't being overtly racist or anti-Semitic, but are just kind of toying with it, or if you're like Tucker Carlson or Candace and you're demoralizing the West and you're Tucker and you're sowing seeds of confusion and criticizing Ben Shapiro as having dual loyalty and all these things, you're the one causing division on the right, not us calling you out. It's what James was talking to us about. You're the divisive artists here. You're the ones who are creatures of division, dividing the right, not us calling you out for doing so, you know? And I think if you're I think you have to unite around common values and principles to defeat bad ideas, not characters and people that you're like not going to ever condemn, you know?
What does the far, when Matt Walsh talks about uniting with the right, with the far right to preserve the party, like what does the far right believe in except for killing Jews? like what is there? What makes them right wing except for the fact that they call themselves right wing?
Why are they conservative? What makes them conservative, you mean?
Yeah, well, yeah. What part of the party do they help?
I think the Matt Walsh argument is no matter what bad apples you can find on the right, they're not nearly as dangerous and violent as the far left. And using the Charlie Kirk.
Like to what James said though, like the far right, it basically is far left at this point.
I totally hear what you're saying. That
like how are they less dangerous than the far left? They
so you could
want the same things.
It depends what you mean. Like if you're talking about, let's say there's people who say we agree on low taxes, we agree on abortion, we agree on a lot of these things.
Does Nick Fuentes talk about low taxes?
Not that often.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I'm curious.
No, it's hard for me to even steelman this argument because I agree with you. They're actually more leftist and tribalist and collectivist than any conservative, which is the point that we're trying to make. These aren't the question I posed to Matt Walsh is, would you unite with radical Islamists or anti-Christians to defeat the left on certain issues? Like, let's say the radical Islamists agree with you about abortion. Would you unite with them? Or would you say, no, we fundamentally have views that are incompatible, and it should be around core common values and principles of compatibility with Western civilization, and the forces that are against that are the things to unite against, left or right. You know, I just
so it's almost like the parties are realigning around Matt Walsh, but he's refusing to realign with them.
Wait, say that again.
The parties are realigning around Matt Walsh, where the far right and far left are coming together almost at the end of this circle.
He's not seeing
Matt
that.
Walsh is not seeing that and saying no, it's still what it was 3 years ago.
Well, I think there's also a couple of factors, which is the personal relationship thing. I would say there's this divide happening between sort of like Megyn Kelly, Matt Walsh on one side, and the Tucker Carlson turning point world, which is saying we're not going to condemn our friends who we've allied with politically and had the same views politically for years. And then you're in this post-October 7th world where you started to see this other thing. And we're not going to throw our friends under the bus. That's what the leftists do. We're not going to shame them publicly. If you have an issue, talk to them privately. And I'm like, okay, but who's the one who called out your friends publicly? That was Tucker who did that, who shamed Ben Shapiro publicly. Candace, who used all these opportunities. I'm not saying he's necessarily aligned with her, but who named and shamed people and tried to divide, if there's such a movement, who tried to divide it? It was right after October 7th. It was very obviously people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens that were doing that. It wasn't, everybody else has had those same views all along. Like, those are the people, the new forces, the darker forces, pulling it in a very bad direction. And so you sort of have Megyn Kelly's, Matt Walsh's on one side, Seth Dillon, Ben Shapiro, Andrew Klavan, these other people saying, no. Like, you can't unite with people who seek to divide you. It's like a contradiction in terms. We agree. I think if you do that, like, the far left, woke left ascendance is on its way and is going to march right in. And they're going to say, look, see, we told you Trump would usher in the era of Nazis. Let's not make that come true. Let's prevent that and weed out. I think the left suffered from not weeding out the worst in its elements, and it imploded in Trump 2024 because they wouldn't call out the worst elements. The right's at risk of doing the same. So I don't want to see that.
No,
happen.
I mean, I said before that it's hard for me to imagine someone in the middle, but I think that person is sort of emerging as I voted for like Obama. I probably even voted for like Hillary and maybe even Biden, but like in the last election, I went like full Trump. Like that got way too crazy for me. But now I'm seeing what Trump's doing with like some of these more authoritarian fascist things and the free speech things, and now I'm like I probably wouldn't vote for him again. And like, I mean, that's kind of like the Rogan, Schultz. Tim
Well,
Dillon
that's
type
one
of
voter
person,
you're
and
talking
they're
about.
going to have to decide, what to do in the next election.
But you have to remember also these people on the right who are the darker forces, the woke right, they hate Trump too. Like it came true. When James first told me like they want to destroy MAGA and the movement, I was like, what are you talking about? They love Trump. This is their guy. And what are they? Trump's shilling for the Zionists. He's controlled by Israel. So they're off Trump. The Groypers, the Nick Fuentes world. Nick Fuentes said to vote for Kamala. They're a destructive force so that they can position themselves in power. So it's not just the middle who's like, I don't want Trump. It's them. What's up?
No. When he said it, I remember asking him. I'm like, wait, what are you saying? That they're not MAGA? What? Can you say that again? But now, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. They want to divide and destroy and then move in.
Right.
Now, speaking of the mainstreaming of a sort of anti-Semitism and all of that, I watched a good bit of Nick Fuentes on Dave Smith. He had Nick Fuentes
so he went on Dave Smith's show.
Yeah, they had a podcast
Dave Smith
together.
hosted Nick Fuentes.
Yes, and had him on.
I didn't see it. Yeah.
And what was really interesting, if you watch it, everyone should, I'd recommend checking it out to see it, is this whole time everyone's been like, Dave, but what do you think? I have always had this question, like, if Dave wants to play near the edge, why does he then go on Jake Shields' podcast and, not call out anti-Semitism where it obviously is? If he wants to say anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, you would think you'd want to be very clear when it does exist that you call it out to maintain some consistency and integrity. But then it became very clear that it's not that Dave doesn't think Nick is not an anti-Semite and making excuses for him. He thinks he is, and he just doesn't mind that much. He doesn't really mind a little bit of racism and anti-Semitism. And I'm not saying that as like a left-wing position to say. I'm just like, he said it very clearly on the show. Everyone's a little racist. Who isn't a little, like, he just doesn't care that much. And one thing that became very clear.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Does he not care, or does he think that Nick Fuentes can't possibly actually mean anything he's saying? And so it's sort of all just like not even worth caring about. Yeah, like you
trolling.
don't really think Jews are parasites? Come on,
No. Nick tells him on the show that they are, that they have power, that they're behind. And Dave,
I know, but you can still dismiss it as a.
He doesn't dismiss it.
He doesn't.
No.
He doesn't. Okay.
What it was revealed to me, which was interesting. I just find it interesting. That's my Candace impression. I just find it interesting. What's interesting is I think for Dave, his line, and I guess I could respect this in some way. His line of what he objects to is violence. No words. No words. Nothing anybody can say, even with racist intent, is ever too far for him. There's no Overton window other than violence. And as an anarcho-capitalist libertarian, I'm like, oh, I get it. And Nick says on the show, I'm not, even though I am racist and I am a racialist and I believe in, certain races are inferior. And he says, but how I believe blacks are inferior and Jews are even more intelligent in some ways, but have too much power and are parasites and like all these horrible, he says these things. I'm not a cruel person. I certainly don't wish violence upon anybody. I wouldn't want to see anybody be hurt, and it was a kind of a crystallizing moment for me. I could be wrong in my assessment, but it seems like for Dave, his line is violence. As long as you don't hurt anybody, you can say whatever you want. You can think whatever you want. Now, I think
that kind of tracks for me, actually. That's a pretty good analysis.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, Dave, it's not that you're not making excuses or covering saying he's not actually anti-Semitic. He is, and you don't care. I'm like, all right, say that then. Just say that then, because maybe your line is just aggression, which makes sense and tracks for his philosophy, which I can kind of understand. The question is, though, if politics is downstream from culture and you facilitate this world of dehumanization, that's how you get violence, bro.
It's
Eventually.
It's the same way he researches Zionism, which is just one step in. Like, take it one step further, and maybe you'll get to where Coleman Hughes is at. But like it's just like, oh, he says it, but he's not hurting anyone. Okay, like go one step further, Dave. Just one step further, and you'll see how his words could result in violence.
But these conversations do force you to kind of review what the real concern is, right? Which ultimately we all agree is like physical harm to anyone, Jews, any minorities, anybody, not just minorities, any human being. What we really draw the line at is violence, in the sense that one can say anything. You know how like a Jewish organization, advocacy group will flip out at a statement, right? In the exact same way they'll flip out at a shul being vandalized and someone getting hurt. You know, and maybe like we don't make those distinctions as to what's more of a concern, because and obviously I'm not downplaying one or the other, but obviously there's a thread that connects one to the other. But, you know, I'm trying to sort of assess how we can be less reactionary to things and treat everything as equally emergency level, versus like somebody says a horrible thing or a slur. I don't agree with it. I don't condone it. It's awful. It's disgusting. Somebody hurts and assaults and or kills somebody at a synagogue or whatever. Much, much worse and much more urgent. And the question is where one leads to the other, and and being aware of those things. But in this conversation, it just became very evident to me. It's very clear. It's like, you just don't care, because everyone's got a little racism in them. Everyone's got a little this. It's just being realistic with human nature. And I was like, oh, so some of it was a little ugly and a little bit eyebrow raising, but also your line is violence. And Nick, the reason Dave shares a tweet of Nick saying he deserves so much credit for this is because he has a lot of power. In a way, it's an admission without him realizing it. After Charlie Kirk, he called for everyone to, calm their temperature and bring the temperature down and de-escalate, and no violence. This is disgusting. This is terrible. And Dave said he deserves credit for this. In saying that, there's an admission that Nick could have wielded it the other way, and you'd see a lot of violence. So in a way, he's admitting that all of this speech and culture can lead to violence. And if you're leaving it in the power of one person to wield it, then you've just proven my point, not yours.
Right.
Michael?
Well said. No, well said. Well said. I was gonna repeat it in a different way, but I think you said it. I think you said it very well.
All right. Well, that's the Dave Smith, Nick Fuentes thing. Michael, we're working through it. The marathon.
I know.
My voice is still going. I need some water.
This might be the last topic. Might be the last topic on our list. We'll see what else comes up. But Barry Weiss sold the Free Press.
Yes.
So there's the sale, and then there's the reaction to the sale that has interested me. What did you think when you first heard about it? Did you have any thoughts?
It's very Jewish. I thought it was I don't follow it at this level the way you do. This is more your area of sort of media conglomerates. And
conglomerates is a great word.
Like how that game is played. I think it's a funny thing of a full circle from legacy media to new media back to legacy media. And we've seen that circle happen. And I think it's going to keep happening more and more.
My first thoughts were Barry Weiss is going to be irrelevant in like 18 months.
Right, yeah.
She went from like total relevance to total irrelevancy. I have a feeling she's just going to get like, I think Megyn Kelly also said that she's going to kind of get swallowed up. No one's going to want to work with her. Everyone's going to make it really difficult. So so the Free Press got bought, I think, for $150 million. It's going to get folded in, or it's going to remain independent, and she's now going to be the head of CBS News, which
editor-in-chief,
the nightly news, right, and Sunday mornings and 60 Minutes. But she's not going to report to she's going to report directly to the guy who owns the entire conglomeration, which is David Ellison, not like someone else who the head editor-in-chief usually would report to. So the first thing was so funny. Like she made this.
Ellison or Larry Ellison? David Ellison or Larry Ellison?
Larry Ellison is his father. He created Oracle. He's like one of the richest men in the world. David Ellison, who seems really cool. He seems actually like people kind of dismiss him as this like rich billionaire's son who's never accomplished anything, which is totally not true. He he made 2 or 3 of the most successful movies of the last like 10 years. He knows what he's doing very much so, and he's very accomplished. I don't like this characterization of him as like some moron billionaire. Right. But anyway, so she made this video announcing it, and like she says what every boss of every company that's ever been acquired says, which is nothing will change, right? No one will get fired. And not only will nothing change, but we're going to be able to do everything we've always done before this, but even better and even easier. So you have nothing to worry about, and everything will be even better than it was before, which is like such BS that never happens when companies get acquired. Things always change, and they're usually worse. To the one point is that Paramount just raised a ton of money to buy. David Ellison just raised a bunch of money to buy Paramount, meaning they need to make money now. So more than ever, they need advertisers. So more than ever, they're not going to go to the free press like, hey, trash Mamdani. We don't care what happens to Paramount in New York City or CBS in New York City. We don't own a huge 70-floor building there. Like, trash him, Harry. Go ahead. Like, of course not. Like, do whatever you want, Barry. We don't need to make money on the free press. Like, it's going to be the complete opposite. They're going to need to make money right away. So that was just A. And like, I wondered how the free press would have covered the free press's being acquired, which is like obvious. They would be like, you've totally just given into mainstream media. It's like the opposite of what you should be doing now. You're going in the wrong way. So I just thought it was like I really just wish she would have been like, hey, I started this 3 years ago and someone offered me $150 million and baby, I took it. Like, just say it. Well, it's okay.
So what I would say is like, remember a lot of doom and gloom predictions that people they love to do that. I mean, you're doing that now a little bit too, but it's when Scott Galloway said, you're witnessing the fall of a man who within 6 weeks from now will be in a mental institution, describing Elon Musk. A lot of times when there's this big disruption or a big change, they're the naysayers who come in and say, oh my God, they are about to just destroy everything they built. So, and I've seen the pattern where those arguments often get proven wrong, where clearly there's been a lot of thought put into such a acquisition and such a transaction that you don't think they've considered all those things that you're talking about and the ability to be compromised and it's worked out?
I think when things go south, people always consider everything, but they just aren't able to maneuver it. I also don't think there's any reason to think. I think it's a really cool idea to say, and this will get us to our next topic, which is the reaction. Let's take a young, forward-thinking news person and put them at the head of one of the biggest news institutions and see what can happen. Because I think really good things will happen. That's a really awesome idea, and I love that they did that. I think then sort of like what do you call the government that like, not the dark government, not the deep web,
deep state?
The deep. There's like you're also putting her into the deep state where you're like, she has to work with thousands of people now who don't want that, and so like whether or not she has a great plan or he has a great plan, it's just extremely difficult thing to do. You're working with 50 and 60-year-olds who like do not want you there.
Yeah, I hear that. I don't underestimate Barry Weiss. I mean, she's proven in every instance, going from, if you follow her trajectory, going from New York Times leaving, oh my God, she's leaving, she's going to become a this and this. At the time, she got all this flack, to Wall Street Journal, to whatever. When she started the free press, in these disruptions, when people, it's sort of like the Gary Vee thing, right? Like you say, you're going to have all these haters, you're going to have all these people who doubt you, and she's kind of proven a pattern of success. So that
I say this as a fan who loves the free press and wants to see it. Yeah, I hope you're right.
But to your point, I'll just add that this is sort of the problem that's sort of inherent with like growth and success based on something great for a particular reason. What makes the free press great is its ability to maintain its independence and therefore sort of its objectivity on covering all these things. That gets really popular, and then fracture ensues once it gets acquired and loses the quality that made it great because it becomes mainstream. It's the same as almost like, Rogan becomes so huge because he's so open and authentic to all these different opinions that all of a sudden it fractures when those opinions don't go the ways that people who initially supported him like. You get this fracturing. It's sort of an inevitable thing, and I've noticed it with people in their success arc. Like, it just doesn't last forever that you're at the peak top of your game where you reach this point where everybody loves what you're doing, where, like, the majority of people can't deny that what you're doing is great. That just doesn't last because eventually something has to break and change. And I've just seen that cycle in so many different domains where whether it's you're the biggest comedian in the world, the biggest podcast in the world, building a huge media empire, then it reaches a threshold and then you're into a different chapter,
So the backlash is definitely coming. So John Oliver just did a whole segment on Barry Weiss,
right?
Which, like, I mean, you could see if she didn't support Israel going the other way, where he's like, finally, they put
right, okay,
down.
Barry Weiss. Yeah. Oh, right, okay. Barry thinks she's now a media mogul. Rupert Murdoch with long hair. Right,
and then,
okay.
And then get very serious. But that's not the
But that's not only the point. If you go to the West Bank, you'll find Barry Weiss's new house that she just bought in a Christian village.
So he took down 3 people: Barry Weiss, Olivia Reingold, and Lucy Biggers, which I thought was very funny because they've both been on the show.
So we have to get Barry on.
It was so mean-spirited and lame and sort of like. I thought it was not a good look for him, and it was very odd and sort of sad and a little bit disturbing because I think if she was not a Jewish woman who supported Israel, there would be a much different reaction to it.
That was Lucy's video. She was like, "This is a liberal success story of Barry, her sister, and 3 women, a lesbian couple
Susie,
who built a media,
Barry and her wife.
who like built a media empire on their own. They went after Lucy Biggers, Michael. You don't go after Lucy Biggers.
No, not our girl Lucy.
Not Lucy Biggers. No, we protect Lucy Biggers. They went after Lucy. Someone, I just want to, like, I think of Smithers when I think Lucy Biggers. She's making some cool content too. But anyway, she made a video like, in all other circumstances, if they weren't where they were politically, this would be the biggest liberal success story and they would have celebrated it. But of course, they can't because it's against the narrative. So yeah, that's kind of gross. That he would do that.
It was very odd. Like, and I mean, he covers like the biggest things in the world, and he's like, we have to cover it because she's running CBS News now. Like, who cares? Like, CBS, who talks about CBS News? Like, I mean, whatever, Like, he's like as if it's this like constant presence in our lives that we must now understand. Yeah. I don't know. It was surprising and a little bit disturbing.
What about Tim dressing like a chassid to try to cover it? I just think it misses the mark. I don't even care.
I was showing an apartment in the East Village, and I was standing outside this like trendy cafe, and I saw these like 3 like the most like normal cool dudes, like a bunch of tattoos, like dressed very very like very cool, but like whatever, just like sort of typically cool people. And the 3 things I overheard were you hear Barry selling her Jewish blog to Paramount.
Oh my god.
It's one thing they said, and then the other thing they said was Tim Dillon is the only one who gets it, man. Tim Dillon is the only one who gets it.
Oh god.
And I really wanted to walk over to them and just sit down with them and like I want to know everything you believe.
By the end of your conversation, they're getting their tattoos removed. He's the only one who gets it.
Well, I can go on Birthright for free. Wow.
Yeah, these people. It's an interesting thing that the people who think they're like reading the culture from this edgy, unique angle that's telling you the real thing might just be completely feeding into the propaganda wing of it. Yeah. And there's more to discuss on that because I've noticed some false narratives that have been peddled out there, and we'll talk about that in a upcoming episode. But knowing for a fact that something isn't true and watching these people you've admired for so long run with it, you're sort of like, oh, you're all full of shit. But we can talk about that. That's in a future episode because there's more. To wrap up, Riyadh Comedy Festival, Michael. I wanted to talk about that when it was all happening, and comedians
Did I tell you that I went as a fan?
How was your set?
I wanted to see everyone. I didn't perform.
Oh, I see.
It was amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, yes. Well, you blend right in with that beard. They just thought you were Saudi.
I told my wife I was going to Oman. I just went to Riyadh.
They're all coming back now, kind of reporting on their sets and stuff. But I had some thoughts on it. Nothing too revolutionary, but I'll just say that it was weird to see both the lecturing of shaming of comics going to perform. My only issue with it was comics who basically refused to perform in Israel, only in Israel, but had no problem going there. I don't know who fell into that category.
So Tim Dillon has said on his Patreon here he would not play in Israel if he was offered money.
Interesting. And then would go to Saudi Arabia. But then
he got fired. But
they're like, how much? He's like, look, I'll watch them chop off somebody's hand for $375K. But the issue, the reason I'm generally okay with this kind of thing is that I do generally agree that even in repressive societies, if they're allowing you to go there and pretty much do comedy and introduce art into the culture, that's moving the culture in a good direction, right? That's what you want. I think it's much harder to go to war with a country or have hostility or intention with a country where you love the comedy from that country. If the population gets into that, they said that about Russia, and
the argument against it is you're whitewashing it, which is actually kind of brings us back to the Ta-Nehisi Coates thing, which is like, I hear that, but that whole whitewashing argument is so non-constructive. Like, okay, so how do we change things there if we're not allowed to whitewash it? Like, what's your suggestion? No, but you're right. No, you're right. Bringing comedians there is like a step in the right direction, probably. Not going there doesn't really do much.
I mean, maybe it's one thing if like Putin or Gaddafi brings you in to perform for him at his private thing as he's doing something horrible because he's the one in power doing it. I can sort of see why that could be a little.
What do you mean? Like he wants someone to perform while he executes someone?
No, but if it's just for him, like
at a private
party or event, and I think that like Castro, whoever brought Beyonce and Jay-Z to it, that happens all the time, I think. Yeah. But that's different than a comedy festival for the public where you're going to go and actually, I think you move the culture in a better direction when you engage through the arts and those kinds of things, whether it's performing music or comedy, especially comedy. I was pretty inspired when I watched Schultz performing in the Emirates in Abu Dhabi and people are cracking up at raunchy jokes. I was like, it made me think there could be peace in Israel. I was like, look at this. Like there's progress here to be made.
Jon Stewart had a funny joke where he's like, I don't know, like we sent 20 of our funniest people to Riyadh. A couple days later, there was peace. I don't know. I don't know. The power of comedy, man. The power of comedy.
So I just don't like this idea of, well, the government is such and such, and therefore you can't go perform for the masses there. I'm like, what? What's the alternative to that?
Right.
And
or again, say you're whitewashing it, but present a better alternative. If you have a better idea, then let's hear it.
A lot of people, I've heard interesting theories about why the Soviet Union eventually, one of the things that led to the pressure of it collapsing was that they became exposed to the West, and Russians wanted blue jeans. Like they couldn't get jeans, so they were the most hot commodity in the Soviet Union. Bruce Springsteen went to the Soviet Union and performed. People went, and they're like, look at what the West has. I want that. I want to laugh. I want to be free. Like, I think the exposing them to your culture and getting it well received, I think is encouraging in general, not something to shame the comedians over. If the comedian has a double standard and says, I won't do it in Israel, which is an actual Western country, then I'm like, oh, well, screw you. That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little funny watching like Schultz's Instagram reels where like him and his boys who were like shitting on Israel. You know, like they didn't perform. They just went there to like party and like eat the food and have a good time.
Did Schultz and his boys shit on Israel in a particular episode?
Yeah. I mean, the Alex guy, Alex Media. Yeah, he doesn't say. If you listen closely, you can figure out very quickly what he thinks.
But listen, people are allowed to have views that I think are wrong. I mean, I don't think it's like a deal breaker in some sort of hypocritical way. Israel's the topic of the conversation, and you're seeing things you might not know all the situation. People have some wrong ideas about it. I don't know if it's what were you saying? The fact that they were shitting on him. What was the?
No, I guess like they're shitting on Israel's human rights like record, but they'll go to a country just to party with awful human rights records. Like
sure.
Like no, just to party, just to be there. There's no other reason for them to be there besides like spending money and enjoying themselves.
But again,
it's just disconnected from.
Yes, reality. Again, I don't know if they would object to going to Israel to party. That crew in particular.
Fair enough.
In that moment of conversation, they're talking about Israel because it's the center of conversation. If Saudi was the center of conversation and they still want to party, it's like, then it's consistent. I think that
Fair
crew,
enough.
I think the Flagrant World would be pretty, overall, I think it would have been pretty good. But like Israel's the center of the topic and you can't always get behind everything.
They have been pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd say. Relatively.
So that's the Riyadh one. And even Bill Burr said I was able to. I like they said, don't push it, don't go past these limits. But then he said I was killing it, and I did anyway, and they loved it. So I was like, that's really cool to hear.
And now he's in a suitcase.
Yeah, and it was fine, dude. It was fine. So in general, yeah, they chopped me up, dude. I lost a hand, dude. I lost my hand, dude. Free Luigi. Yeah.
Would that be insane if Bill Burr came back with one hand?
That's a great skit. How was it? It was great. That's a good bit.
It's ups and downs.
They come back missing an eye, a hand, with three wives. It's just bad. Anyway, Michael, we marathoned it. We covered so many
This was
topics.
good. I thought this would go for like 3 hours. It hasn't been 3 hours, but we covered a lot here.
We've gotten very efficient.
I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, I've been following a little bit of the
Well,
last ones, like the Austin comedy scene and the comedy riffs and stuff like that have been interesting to watch. That's like the latest going on where there's like, it's interesting to see how I remember at a time when Rogan moved to Austin and the comedy scene was like this revolution that was uplifting all these comics and, culture and life is long. And you start to see like in the post-Trump, post-era that we're in now, how things are fracturing. But we can cover some of those details at another time, the beefing comedian stuff. Mm-hmm. But to recap, Michael, I think we covered the end of the war, the hostages coming home, Coleman Hughes versus Dave Smith, Barry Weiss, Paramount, CBS, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Ezra Klein.
Coleman
This was the
Hughes.
I said that already, Coleman Hughes, but
yeah.
let's talk about it again. Coleman Hughes, Dave Smith, Nick Fuentes, Riyadh Comedy Festival.
And we got a big one. I think it'll be the next episode, probably.
Yeah.
Ami
Yeah, we'll
has
talk about it.
He has a big revelation to share. We're going to talk about some stuff that's very much in the news that Ami's got a real insight on. So we'll be promoting that soon. But stick around for that.
Stick around. Some stuff to
Ami,
be
you're
revealed.
so nervous. I'm going to say something wrong.
I thought. Well, I liked how you set that up. Let's leave the cliffhanger, but all will be revealed. Let's just say that. Michael, I feel caught up. I feel reacquainted, and it's good to be back, and some exciting announcements to come. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and stay tuned for more stuff. I think we should put more stuff on Patreon, too. Didn't we put part of the Yossi Klein when we put on Yossi Cohen? We asked Yossi Klein about Jeffrey Epstein. He gave us an answer. We put that up on Patreon. So go check that out if you want to hear that. He said he was. He said he was. They killed him and he was. Yeah, right. You should see it for yourself, though. Go watch on Patreon. Yeah, way to bait him. But we did get a few patrons coming in, and we appreciate the new subscribers. And it's good to be back, Michael. I got to say, it's good to be back.
Is it good to be back? It's good to be back in America?
Oh, I meant just sitting here talking to you, but I could be anywhere right now. But listen.
You could be anywhere.
It's nice. It's nice to be, no dust on my feet, no sun in my eyes, trees, shade. There's very little of that in Israel. But of course, you also get the post-Israel blues because, man, what a time. I have to be honest. What a time to be in Israel. And you get that a little bit when you come back. But
it was good. I knew it.
It was great. It's always great.
Lying to me.
It was great.
Yeah.
No, you perceive it to be insane and different than the actual experience, but it's great. My legs are killing me. A friend of mine, comedian, I think with Dovey, I was on the phone with him. He's like, somehow when you're in Jerusalem, no matter which way you're going, you're always walking uphill. And it's true. Like, it's a lot of effort when you're with the little kids and stuff being in Jerusalem. But it was a great time, but it's good to be back. I'm excited to be releasing the next slew of episodes and more guests to come. We'll be discussing that too. Some more guests in the lineup. Yeah. All right. Well, Shana Tova. Shana Tova. It's a new year. Tova.
Umetuka. I really want to get I want you to listen to For Heaven's Sake with Yossi Klein Halevi and Daniel Hartman and get your impressions of them.
Impersonations?
Well, maybe by in the next few episodes we'll get those.
Okay, that's very niche, but I will do it.
It's people listen to it, I think.
Okay. Yeah, you see it. You see the potential.
I see. I think. Yeah.
All right. Very good.
Okay.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Good to be back.